Welcome to the Hindu Daily. We've got a fascinating and, I have to say, at times pretty urgent set of sources for our deep dive today. They really force us to confront these huge contrasts we see in India and, well, around the world.
They really do. We're talking contrasts and security and how our cities function, and even in how we look back at history.
So we're going to jump right in with a global security analysis. We're starting with a piece from the editorial section that calls this period India's moment of reckoning.
And that's a pretty heavy term. It's a sobering assessment, especially when you think about India's position as something of an outlier in global affairs right now.
What do you mean by outlier exactly?
Well, it's struggling to, fully align or take a really definitive stance in major hotspots. Think West Asia or the Indo-Pacific. And at the same time, its own neighborhood is in some serious turmoil.
Right, we're seeing that in Afghanistan, Nepal, the Maldives, Myanmar.
Exactly. And the source material makes it very clear that these security threats are just. They're multiplying so rapidly, it feels like they're coming at India from every direction.
Okay, so let's break those directions down. The piece talks about a dual external pressure. Let's start on the western flank with Pakistan.
The threat level there is definitely rising, and a big part of that is this massive constitutional shift that's centralizing military power.
This is the 27th Amendment bill.
That's the one. And this is so much more than just a procedural tweak. It fundamentally upsets the entire civil-military balance. It creates a brand new post, Chief of Defense Forces, and elevates Field Marshal Asim Munir to what is, well, essentially a military supremo.
A supremo with what kind of power?
This is the critical part. He's given absolute authority, and that's a quote, absolute authority over nuclear assets, and this is key, over dealing with enemies like India.
So you're saying this effectively removes any civilian or parliamentary check on the use of their most critical and dangerous assets.
Precisely. When you concentrate that kind of authority into the hands of one military leader, someone who wields dictatorial power, it just drastically enhances the risk of miscalculation.
Or strategic adventurism.
Exactly. The risk of conflict goes up significantly because all those traditional checks and balances, they've just been stripped away.
So that's the West. And compounding that is an emerging concern on the eastern flank. Bangladesh, which has historically been such a key strategic partner for India. The interim government there is proving to be, well, unfriendly.
Yes, and it's not just that they're being a bit cool toward New Delhi. They are actively showing a willingness to pivot westward. We saw really tangible evidence of this.
The Pakistan Navy ship visit.
That's it, a Pakistan Navy ship visiting Bangladesh. It's the first military exchange like that in almost half a century. And that raises serious, really serious security implications for India, especially when you think about control and influence in the Bay of Bengal.
So the external landscape is its hostile flanks converging. But internally, the article warns of something maybe even more disturbing, the return of urban terror after that long, quiet period post-2008, but with a totally new profile.
Yeah, and what's so frightening about this new module is its composition. It's made up of indigenous actors, and they're spread geographically from Jammu and Kashmir all the way down to Delhi and Faridabad.
And the profile of these actors, it's not what you'd expect.
Not at all. It's the educated elite. We're talking medical practitioners, doctors, many of them with links to Al Faleh University in Faridabad. This is what the source calls a quantitative and qualitative leap from previous attacks.
Right, which were often carried out by sort of lumpen elements or foreign sponsors you could trace.
Exactly. The fact that these are educated indigenous actors and that they're drawing inspiration specifically from the destruction of the Babri Masjid back in 1992, that connects this module to a deep historical ideological grievance. This isn't just foreign infiltration anymore.
And that ideological grounding must make it so much harder to dismantle.
Far harder. And the sheer scale of their preparation just confirms how dangerous they are. They managed to accumulate nearly 3,000 kilograms of explosive material.
3,000, that's a staggering amount.
It is. The source says they were using encrypted channels for everything, from indoctrination to moving funds, often disguised as charitable causes. And this network, it apparently has reported links that extend to the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey.
Which completely explodes the myth, as the article puts it, that local recruitment in places like J&K is stopped.
It absolutely does. This demands immediate, very focused vigilance.
Okay, that is an immense security threat to process.
Yeah.
Let's shift our focus now. We're moving from the security of borders and cities above ground to the resilience of what lies, well, right beneath.
A very different kind of security.
Exactly. We're turning to urban resilience. And this is tied to World Soil Day. The theme for 2025 is healthy soils for healthy cities.
It's such a critical pivot because urban soil it's truly the unsung hero beneath all our concrete, isn't it? The source material reminds us that it performs these four absolutely critical services that help our cities survive.
And we just don't think about it. I mean, soil is something you associate with rural areas, but when you realize how many of us live in cities now, urban soil becomes this incredibly dynamic ally.
It really does.
So what are these core services?
Okay, so first up is climate and heat management. Cities, as you know, suffer intensely from the heat island effect. Healthy soil, especially with plants on it, acts as a natural cooler. It absorbs heat, it sequesters carbon. It's basically a free air conditioner.
I see. And the second one?
Flood management. As we see more and more intense rainfall because of climate change, permeable soil acts like a giant sponge. It soaks up the water, filters it, and recharges the groundwater. Sealed concrete, of course, does the exact opposite, just creating runoff.
And if you live in a city that floods during the monsoon, you know exactly how critical that natural absorption is. So what are the other two?
Third is food systems and biodiversity. We're talking urban agriculture things like rooftop farms, community gardens. The soil supports that whole local ecosystem that's vital for decomposition and growth.
Okay, and the last one?
And fourth, this one's my favorite. It's about our well-being. It provides what the article calls vitamin N, that's nature contact. It's proven to reduce stress and anxiety. We are just instinctively calmer when we interact with living soil.
It's amazing. But despite all these incredible services, the article points out that nearly a third of the world's soils are degraded. And in cities, the problem is just magnified.
Absolutely. Urban soils get contaminated by waste, they're severely compacted by construction, and this is the worst offender. They get sealed by concrete and asphalt. It essentially suffocates all the life in the soil.
So the 2025 campaign, it's basically a blueprint to fight back against this.
It is. It's an urgent 5-point blueprint. It's all very actionable.
What are the key steps?
Well, first, we need to prioritize restoring urban soil. That means using compost and, crucially, limiting any more sealing. Second, promote green infrastructure. Replace concrete with soil-based things like rain gardens.
Things that let the water in.
Exactly. Third, champion urban agriculture in all its forms. Fourth, embrace responsible management, using native species, reducing chemicals. And finally, boost soil literacy and composting. Encourage everyone from schools to households to turn their waste back into soil nutrients.
It's a powerful idea that healthy cities really do require healthy, living soil right underneath them.
It's the foundation, literally.
Okay, so moving from the soil beneath our feet to the governance structures above us, we need to talk about leadership, or maybe the lack of visible leadership, in many of our major Indian cities. I mean, when you look at the profile of someone like NYC Mayor Zohran Mamdani in the U.S., it really throws into sharp relief how invisible mayors are in Indian cities.
It's a huge contrast.
Why is it that citizens in Mumbai or Bengaluru or Hyderabad, they struggle to even name an elected official with real authority?
The problem is structural, and it's historic, and it really just boils down to centralized power. The reality is that city affairs are not controlled by the mayor's office or the municipal corporation.
So who controls them?
They're primarily controlled by the chief minister's office, often just called the CM's Peshi or his inner circle. This has been a massive shift, and it's been happening since about the 1960s.
But hold on, the 74th Constitutional Amendment, that was supposed to fix all of this, wasn't it? It gave constitutional status to local governments. The source material here argues that, paradoxically, it actually made things worse. How is that possible?
It's a great question. And it failed because decentralization in India has been, for the most part, supply-driven. That means it was mandated from the top down by the Constitution, by the state, not demanded or enforced by the people from the bottom up.
So there's citizen apathy.
Rampant citizen apathy. If the average citizen doesn't know who their elected local representative is or what they do, there's just no political pressure to strengthen that local government against the state.
And we see the results of this when city corporations get reorganized. You know, Bengaluru splitting into 5 municipalities or Hyderabad merging them. Are these actual governance fixes?
The analysis suggests that often they're not. These divisions or mergers are frequently seen as what the article calls malified justifications, meaning they're just tools used to postpone elections or to neutralize courts that might otherwise force a poll. They're basically territory management strategies from the CM's office to maintain control, not genuine efforts to make governance more efficient.
So if the problem is the CM's office having too much control and citizens not being engaged enough, what's the realistic fix to make the mayor a visible, effective leader?
Well, you have to fundamentally cut back the power of the chief minister's office over city affairs. That's number one. But just as important is fixing the financial reality. The money. Municipal revenue bases are tiny, and their crucial functions are often limited or just taken over by these powerful state-run agencies called parastatals. These are your water boards, your electricity boards. They operate completely outside the control of the elected city council. So you have to decentralize financial allocations, make sure ward offices actually get the funds they need, and fix the role of those powerful parastatals.
Now we're going to shift focus entirely to a critical public health issue that's emerging in Telangana. Doctors there are seeing a deeply worrying trend, a rise in kidney failure among surprisingly young patients.
Yeah, the mean age is just 41.7 years.
And critically, these patients don't have the traditional risk factors for chronic kidney disease. No diabetes, no hypertension.
It's a devastating mystery. And a study from nephrologists at Osmania General Hospital, which was just published in August 2024, is pointing towards a possible and very dangerous link. Self-prescribed alternative medicines. They studied 75 patients to try and document this chronic kidney disease of unknown etiology in the state.
And what data points specifically link these unregulated remedies to the kidney damage?
Well, 40% of these patients reported using alternative medicine in the past. And this was often without any formal medical guidance, no prescription. These were substances, powders, liquids, leaves, frequently consumed from unnamed bottles based on a recommendation from a friend or local quack.
And the core issue is that nobody knows what's in them.
Exactly. There's a complete lack of knowledge about the dosage, the strength, or even how these substances are metabolized by the body. So the body just doesn't know how to process it, and the organs end up suffering the consequences.
How did that work exactly?
Well, if the metabolism of some unknown substance is too slow, it starts to accumulate in the body. It creates a toxicity that damages organs, especially the filtering organs like the kidneys and the liver.
And the study found physical evidence of this damage.
Severe evidence. The histological findings were stark. 44% of patients had something called global glomerulosclerosis. Now, for our listeners, that basically means a huge portion of the kidney's tiny filtering units, the glomeruli, were completely scarred and non-functional. That's permanent damage.
That's a terrifying indicator of catastrophic failure. And we know the Telangana Medical Council has also been warning about this, about the menace at unqualified practitioners.
They have. The TGMC says that these unqualified practitioners are contributing directly to CKD by giving out irrational and often incredibly dangerous prescriptions. They specifically cited combinations like dexamethasone and diclofenac sodium given together for quick pain relief.
And those drugs together are toxic to the kidneys.
They directly damage the nephrons, leading rapidly to kidney failure. This whole tragic trend just underscores the absolute critical necessity for patients to consult only licensed medical experts. It's a life or death matter.
Okay, moving from critical domestic health concerns to global development, let's explore the really striking dichotomy that defines modern China. On one hand, you have the shimmering, ultra-modern skyscrapers of Shanghai.
And on the other, the quiet but intensely focused deep socialism of its countryside.
It's a nation of two completely different economic realities.
It really is. While those eastern provinces, Guangdong, Beijing, Shanghai, have become these global hubs powered by a kind of state-led capitalism, the central and western regions, places like Sichuan and Yunnan, show China's tremendous top-down commitment to poverty alleviation.
This is what they call the Shishu spirit, right?
Yes, that's the idea of turning barren clay into gold.
China's success in lifting people out of poverty is globally recognized. But how did they actually achieve that scale of transformation, especially in some of the most remote regions?
It's been a sustained, very centralized effort over decades. It started with special poverty relief institutions way back in 1986. Then came the landmark 7-year program in 1994 and another outline in 2001.
And the results speak for themselves.
They're undeniable. The poverty headcount ratio just plummeted from over 10% in 2001 to under 4% by 2010. They poured heavy investment into remote areas. For example, Malipo County, which is 99% mountainous, has been officially free from extreme poverty since 2020.
But that kind of success can't just be central government money being thrown at a problem, can it? The cooperation of the people must be integral to this Shishu spirit.
Oh, it's entirely reliant on local buy-in. You see this so vividly in places like Jabosai Village in Enjinping County. This area is home to ancient tea trees. In 2014, the Iwolan Ancient Tea Cooperative was set up.
So local people are part of the business.
They are the business. They collect and process the leaves. And this cooperative benefited massively from the interprovincial cooperation model, where wealthy regions like Shanghai invest directly in developing the western provinces. That cooperative now generates serious annual revenue, substantially boosting local household incomes.
And now that China has largely tackled extreme poverty, what's their next big domestic focus?
The focus has shifted to what they're calling the Rural Comprehensive Revitalization Plan, which runs up to 2027. The main goal now is to close that remaining urban-rural income gap, focusing on things like food security and just ensuring sustained prosperity for rural communities. It's this ongoing balancing act.
The economic sprint of the East, with the quiet, strong socialism holding up the West.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Now, moving from global development to a really pivotal moment in India's own history of equality. Let's look at the immense significance of Mahad in pre-independent India. This wasn't just another political movement. It was a revolution for a basic human right, centered specifically on access to water.
Mahad is absolutely fundamental to understanding India's constitutional ethics. You had the 1923 Bole Resolution, which theoretically allowed Dalits access to public water sources like the Chavadar tank. But in practice, untouchability ensured they were systematically denied.
So water became the symbol of oppression.
The ultimate symbol, and this led to the two major Mahad Satyagrahas, led by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar.
So the first movement, in March 1927, what was the central action?
Mahad 1.0 was a direct, peaceful assertion of a right. Ambedkar and his followers marched to the tank to drink the water, and when they did, they were met with violence. And afterwards, the locals performed these immediate, elaborate rituals.
Purification rituals.
Exactly, aimed explicitly at purifying the tank and just reinforcing the caste hierarchy.
But it's the second event, in December 1927, that's often remembered for its sheer symbolic power, even though the Satyagraha itself was called off.
It was revolutionary. A court had issued a stay on water access, so Ambedkar canceled the physical march. But on December 25th, he made this profound symbolic statement. He publicly burned copies of the Manusmriti.
And he linked this act to the French Revolution.
He did, directly. He compared it to the spirit of the French Revolution, particularly that moment of the tennis court oath, the assertion of rights against an entrenched, unjust power.
But the source material highlights that Ambedkar's vision was even more expansive. It went beyond the French Revolution's limited understanding of citizenship.
And that is the ultimate takeaway here. Ambedkar introduced this novel, gendered understanding of rights. The French Revolution's declaration didn't really encompass women fully, but Mahad 2.0 specifically addressed women and treated women's rights as being absolutely central to the entire fight for caste annihilation.
Which is why December 25th is celebrated today as Indian Women's Liberation Day.
It all comes from that moment, a truly foundational event.
We're going to shift now to a modern tragedy playing out far from South Asia. We're turning to Ukraine. We often hear statistics about the conflict, but let's go to the western town of Hoshcha, which is far from the front lines. A place where the silent reality of Ukraine's demographic disaster is encapsulated in an eerily quiet maternity ward.
The human cost of this war just extends so far beyond the battle lines. The population of Ukraine has collapsed from 42 million before the war to below 36 million now, and the projections are just grim. It could drop to 25 million by 2051.
And they hold some kind of global record for this crisis, right?
They do. The highest death rates and the lowest birth rates in the world. It results in about 3 deaths for every single birth.
The impact on life expectancy alone is just shocking.
It is absolutely devastating. The average male life expectancy has fallen from 65.2 years before the war to a shocking 57.3 years now. And you feel these effects at a hyperlocal level.
Like the maternity ward in Hoshcha.
Exactly. That ward actually lost its government funding in 2023 because it had 169 births. It missed the official target of 170 by just one single child.
Wow. When you hear that a major regional hospital missed its funding target by one single birth, what does an anecdote like that really tell us about the long-term prospects for Ukraine's recovery?
It tells us they face a desperate labor deficit. The Kiev government has outlined a demographic strategy that runs to 2040, and they're projecting a massive deficit of 4.5 million workers over the next decade.
In critical sectors.
Yes, in tech, in construction. The entire strategy now hinges on stopping emigration and, critically, creating the conditions, the infrastructure, the housing to lure the millions of Ukrainians currently living abroad back home.
From the future challenges of Ukraine, let's pivot back 11,000 years to a fascinating archaeological discovery in Turkey. Turkey's Stone Hills project in Sanliurfa province. It's being dubbed the world's Neolithic capital.
It is, and this project covers 12 different sites, including the famous UNESCO site Göbekli Tepe, and it's just completely transforming our understanding of that shift from nomadic hunter-gatherer life to settled communities.
And the latest finds from a site called Karahan Tepe are key.
Very key. They've found a stone figurine with stitched lips and these striking carved stone faces. And these finds are really changing the whole narrative about Neolithic belief systems.
What specific belief shift does the increasing presence of these human sculptures? What does that suggest to archaeologists?
Well, the lead researchers believe it indicates a fundamental change in worldview. As these communities became sedentary, they gradually shifted their focus away from just nature and the hunt. They started placing the human figure and the human experience at the center of the universe.
So these findings are overturning that long-held assumption that the Neolithic world was, for lack of a better word, primitive.
Absolutely. What they're finding shows a highly organized society with its own symbolic world and belief structures. It suggests really sophisticated thought systems were present right at the dawn of settled civilization.
And there are even differences between the sites themselves.
Which is also fascinating. You see cultural differences. Göbekli Tepe is still dominated by animal imagery, but Karahan Tepe features much more widespread human symbolism. It shows there was regional variation even within this ancient civilization.
And finally, let's wrap up with a look at culture and history in the Friday Review section. We're examining the origins of the Tamil song movement, or Tamil Isai, which took center stage at that famous 1941 Madras Music Academy conference.
That conference really is the launch point for this whole movement. The debate was sparked when the legendary musician Arikudi Ramanuja Iyengar argued that the language controversy had no place at all in the field of aesthetic music.
Even though he himself was known for popularizing Tamil songs.
Exactly. But his point was that he felt Tamil just lacked the necessary repertoire compared to other languages to really stand on its own in the Carnatic tradition.
So why was that? Why did Telugu and Sanskrit dominate Carnatic music for centuries, between the 15th and 19th centuries, leading to this lack of a strong Tamil repertoire?
It was entirely due to political patronage. Once the Vijayanagar Empire and the Nayaks came to power, Tamil ceased to be the language of administration. They actively commissioned compositions in Telugu to, reinforce their claims to kingship.
So if you composed in Telugu, you got support.
You found patronage, you had disciples, you had an unbroken lineage to pass your work down, but composers who were working in Tamil often lacked that institutional support.
And the result was a kind of historical memory loss for these Tamil works.
A complete memory loss. The source material notes that even incredibly popular works like Gopalakrishna Parathi's Nandanar Charitram had lost all their original musical settings by the early 20th century. They had to be completely reset to new music.
The music just didn't survive because the lineage and the patronage had collapsed.
That's right. So the Tamil Isai movement, which was spurred on by visionaries like Kalki Krishnamurthy and funded by Raja Sir Annamalai Chettiar, it had this massive historical mandate.
What did they do? What were their main efforts?
They focused on two big things. First, this huge scholarly and musical exercise to set older works, like the Tevaram, to music in the modern Kirtana format. And second, they created an institutional mechanism, a college that became the core of Annamalai University, specifically to encourage new composition and serious scholarship in the language. They brought in stalwarts to create new songs.
So despite all the skepticism and the political controversy at the time, the movement really achieved its core objective.
It absolutely did. It ensured Tamil's rightful place in the Carnatic music repertoire. And while the politics of the movement were certainly contentious, the scholarly and musical efforts ultimately proved so beneficial for the greater good. They cemented the language's survival and ensured its flourishing within the classical musical form for all future generations.
Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.